Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. You can find me on Facebook at Galen Trombley, on Instagram at Galen Trombley, and on YouTube at Galen Trombley. Spelling GaelanTrombley. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. Welcome to episode 121 of the Galen Trombley Show. My guest today, and I'll go by the title, Community Resource Officer of the Plattsburgh City Police at the Community Service Center located on Margaret Street. Some guests I've known for years, some guests I don't really know. I would say my guest is Brad Miller today. Brad, I think I know more of you than I think we both know more of each other than we do personally, but I'm excited to have you on. I kind of watch from afar of stuff that you've done. So this is, I'm looking forward to this. So Brad, welcome. I was going to say this is live. We got everything. We got the whole gear. So Brad, welcome. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Yeah.
So people that do not know you, just kind of give us a little brief background, kind of story of how you got to 2021 Brad Miller.
Okay. So I'm not afraid. I'm pretty open about conversation. My dad was in the military. That's how I ended up in Plattsburgh, New York. We flew in from England, and I've been here since I was 12 years old. I call this home. Grew up in a poor household, single mom, 4 kids. Dad left us when I was 13. So I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to be in an abusive, alcoholic, substance abuse household. It pays a toll on kids. I understand that. So that's a little bit of how I ended up here in Plattsburgh, New York. Went to local schools here. Ended up having 2 beautiful kids. I have a 25-year-old. I say kids, but 25-year-old Zach, he works for the U.S. Postal Service, and I have a 15-year-old Xander, who is a student at Plattsburgh High School. About 19 years ago, I came on to the Plattsburgh Police Department and worked the streets as a street cop. 10 of those years out of the 17 were probably night shift. And then the position came open for this community resource officer downtown. And if you wanted to go into how that all started, we can talk about that. But this is how I'm sitting here today with you, and being able to have that platform to discuss things about the job and what we're doing and how we're trying to be more engaging with the community.
Okay, so we'll dive into that. So going back to, were you born in England?
No, actually, I was born in southern Louisiana.
Okay.
So when people say, from the bigger cities, they come up here, whether college students or not, and they say, well, you guys are redneck cops. And I joke around and say, if you want to see a redneck cop, go down to southern Louisiana, because it's down in the bayou is much different than up here.
What's the bayous like down there in Louisiana?
I remember a little bit of it because I was very, very young. Being a military dependent, you don't stay in one place very long. It can be very traumatizing on a child. Every 3-4 years, you end up packing up and moving. So I was only there for the first couple years of my life, and then had to move on to the next air base.
Was that hard making friends growing up?
Yeah.
You leave and you don't really have, you know what I mean? You go to another state. It's not like the kids are following you. It's before technology, before Facebook.
Right. It's like starting all over again, starting life, starting school, friendships, houses, like everything is starting over. And I think to this day, part of my life has affected me. It's like, I've been through a couple of divorces. I'm starting over. I lose a house. I have to build myself back up, get another house, build another family. So I think some of that has to do with the constant, being a military dependent and moving and starting over every 3 or 4 years.
And you said you moved up here at 12 years old?
Yes.
And then this was it. You never moved away and came back?
Right. My dad left when I was 13, and kind of sad to say, but kind of left us to hang and dry. And it was tough. There were some tough times, but I had to step up and be that bigger brother and be a father figure and do what I could to contribute.
Are you the oldest in the family?
No,
Siblings?
no. My brother's actually a year and a half older, and he decided to peace out because he didn't want the responsibility. So
Okay. And you have younger siblings?
yes, I have two sisters. One is a school counselor, Kelly at Moma Elementary, and one is she does pet grooming.
Okay.
So
Now, do you think, like, I should say, actually, let's keep going back there. So how did you get into the police department?
So being, I was pretty much on the straight and narrow growing up. I was a little rebellious when it came to, I wouldn't be afraid to jump out of 2-story windows if I had to, because somebody's dad was chasing me, kind of thing. Being 13 years old, 14 years old, 15 years old. I had to do some things that I didn't want to do as a kid. And that's when you don't have enough food at home and you think about others. There were times there wasn't enough food at home, and I went into stores and did things I had to do just to try to survive. And I use that as a learning experience. And when I talk about that kind of stuff, it actually breaks down some barriers, and it can build relationships, especially in the type of work that I'm doing now.
So when did you get into the police department? Was this like your first gig, like right out of school? You went into...
No, I started when I was 31, actually. I was
Okay.
one of the oldest in the academy. I worked security work since I was 18. So when I was a senior in high school, I knew I wanted to do something to contribute to the community. The whole thing with law enforcement and policing fascinated me. I wanted to be the good guy. So I didn't have a father to help direct me in the right direction. So I had to kind of lead myself. So I did a lot of security work for between 18 and 31 years of age. So I've done everything from when I was 18, I got hired at mall security. When I was 20, I worked security at CVPH and was also an emergency medical technician. I did that for 3 or 4 years. I was a security director at the mall after I got a lot of experience years later. And then I got into loss prevention, became a corporate investigator for a large corporation, and then took a pay cut and a schedule change to become a police officer.
Now, was that the ultimate goal, or was this kind of something you just fell into? Because I'm 31 right now, so I'm kind of putting it in perspective of that'd be like me completely changing. I would say changing. Well, I guess it is going from security to police, even though it's kind of law enforcement. It's, I would say, a pretty different realm of law enforcement, or do you think they're pretty similar?
Well, the thing with security, especially in corporations or retail, they're worried about shrinkage and theft and loss of company, and what can security do to try to, whether it's stop a shoplifter or do an internal investigation. So it was primarily like a monetary kind of, how can we hire security to keep our merchandise safe, to keep our cash in our register safe, to keep our employees safe. So I felt like I was kind of limited in what I was doing, and I didn't want to make a career out of it because I felt that wasn't enough for me to reach more people and to help more people.
So, did you find it was hard at 31 to switch careers? Or was it just like the natural stepping stone?
Some of the things that I did, like working hospital security, I got a lot of exposure. We got called to the mental health unit a lot. We got called to the emergency department a lot. I was a driver for the ambulance and also an EMT, so I responded to emergencies like car accidents and, people that have mental health crisis or maybe suicidal. Injuries, things like that. So I had some exposure doing that. And it kind of helped me when it came time to put it into play as far as in the academy, and I had a martial arts background, so defensive tactics wasn't difficult for me. I always stayed in shape, so I made sure that going in the academy, I wasn't going to have to worry about the time run, the sit-ups, the push-ups. And now being assigned as being a recruiter for the Plattsburgh Police Department, those are some of the things that I can talk about, being prepared to actually take this job on.
So was your goal to go into the city, the PD, or were you didn't really have, like, when you came out of the academy, were you like, it wasn't a trooper academy, right? So the police department and the trooper and like sheriff, are they all different academies?
They are not. The state police does have their separate academy, and we've had people come on board with us at the Plattsburgh Police Department and then decide that they want to go to the state police for maybe more money or a different location. And they would move on and have to still complete a state police academy. Our headquarters, our department, has a Zone 9 police academy. So we're the headquarters for the Zone 9 police academy. And agencies in that academy could be the Clinton County Sheriff's Department, Essex County Sheriff's Department, Lake Placid PD, Saranac Lake PD. So basically any police agency in the Tri-County area, with the exception of the state police or federal. The academy's right here in Plattsburgh.
So you get into the Plattsburgh Police Department. And would you say night shift we started?
You do a 5-month academy, roughly 4 months of field training. Then you get, after the field training, you get kind of cut loose on your own. And the shifts go by seniority. So typically somebody new coming on would end up on a night shift, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Mm-hmm. There were quite a few guys that were on day shift at the time that had seniority, and you pick your shift every year. So they wanted to remain on day shift. So the new recruits or the newbies or the people with less than 5 years on had to work a night shift, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
And you had to basically wait till guys retired
to
kind of keep getting
to bid, to bid the next shift. Yep.
Now, have you been on day shifts too?
Yeah. So after about 10 years of night shifts, I went to day shift, and I was on day shift for about, I'd say 6.5 years until I got this position.
Is that kind of trippy for you to go from like the night down to the day, like just kind of a change?
Yeah, just
sleep schedule, but also just like,
oh my goodness, if you think about working 3 night shifts, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. in a row, and then having 2 days off. So your first day off, you're actually trying to get a little bit of sleep because you're so exhausted after working 36 hours in 3 nights, and the stress levels and all that stuff going on in the job. You crash for a couple hours. You try to force yourself up early, no matter how tired you are, so you can go to bed that night. Mm-hmm. So you go to bed that night, and then the following night, you go to bed also, and your body starts to adjust, and then you're right back to night shift again. So you don't know when to sleep, when to eat.
So hard.
Oh, it is on your body. It's, I may have been grumpy quite a few times, but you try to.
Are you a coffee guy?
Ever since I became a cop, yes.
Okay.
And just for the record, not a donut guy, but I'm a coffee guy. So
like the Simpsons? Was it what's the guy, the officer, whatever his name is?
Yeah.
I haven't seen the Simpsons in a long time, but that was always Wiggums, Officer Wiggum.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just remember because Ralph Wiggums was this kid. So
oh, okay.
yeah, guys, it's been years since I've seen that. But the night shift. How's day and night? I mean, I would say from an outsider perspective, I would think the night shift would be potentially more high stress, high, potential for problems, just knowing, potential night crowd may not be as good as the day crowd. Because some people might say it's quieter at night because people are sleeping in theory, but I would think also when people are sleeping, that's probably when the most mischief would happen. So
yeah. See, you said the Q word. That's something that you do not say when you're on the road. Because if you say the Q word and it rhymes with riot, I'm not even going to say it because I've been trained not to.
We were in the delivery wing for our child a couple months ago. And we said that. And don't say the Q word.
Yes.
So
people in law enforcement, medical professionals, fire, EMS, they all know.
In your job, quiet's a good thing.
It is, but not to say it.
Not to
because
say
if you
it, yeah.
say it, it's like coming across a black cat. You will turn your patrol car around and drive 10 miles the other way just to get around that black cat because it's going to bring you bad luck.
So the Q riot times. So did you find that night was a little more higher stress than days? 'Cause it's kind of, I would say, different type of patrolling, right?
It is, and I'd have to say it's a different animal. Not saying that one is more stressful than the other. I've experienced both. Being on night shift, it is paying a toll on your body. You know, you have to stay awake. You're going from call to call. You have to work the beat downtown. There's a high concentration of bars or establishments downtown. Prior to COVID, it was a different scenario, right? Because college was in full swing. Locals would go out. There is no 25% or 50% capacity. It was kind of like a free-for-all. And having two guys beat cops on the street downtown, between certain hours, sometimes till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, because that's how long they would linger downtown after drinking and maybe having a slice of pizza or a hot dog or whatever, and you're smiling because you know it. You may have been down there.
I was a kid or younger at one point.
Yeah. So to be down there, to be a sense of safety and security, and also provide a order downtown, because if not, then people were getting assaulted and property was getting damaged, and that's what the nightlife is.
So when you go down and taking downtown, the extension of Bridge Street, is that Bridge Street still going up like kind of
from
between
Margaret
Ashley's
to
Furniture
Bridge?
and Green
Yes,
Room right
yes.
there? So those two cops are pretty much the only ones normally that are
in the
assigned.
downtown area, and then there were other.
I mean, you have people for backup
police
and
officers doing handling complaints, whether it's a noise complaint, maybe a DWI, domestic disturbance. Things go on. You could have a large altercation downtown, but in the same time, dispatch is calling for a unit to break because there's a physical domestic in progress. Mm-hmm. So if you kind of put that in your head, and a lot of people in the public don't know what goes on until they've maybe done like a ride along with us, and then it opens up their eyes like, wow.
Well, I mean, I think I'm like everybody else. I have assumptions as to what you do, but I think when you actually are in the car going about, I mean, you like when people you hear like a middle of the night and you hear like a noise at your house, you're like, what the heck is that?
Yes.
And freak out, knowing that it's probably nothing. It's probably just something, just your ears were just in tune at that time. I would find that your line of work, you're pretty much on edge probably the whole shift, which I would think that at least I think I would, like if I was in that position, but I would think at the end of the shift, it's got to be more mentally exhausting than it is physically exhausting.
Yeah, and usually at the end of the shift is when you have to try to get all your paperwork done before you leave. Mm-hmm. So everything that you respond to, every incident, every complaint requires paperwork. You have to type up a case report. Depending on what you responded to is how much paperwork you're going to end up with. And sometimes, in some cases, it's hours and hours long. If you have a physical domestic dispute involving several charges like assault and endangering the welfare of a child and menacing or unlawful imprisonment.
Or something.
But yeah, I mean, you're talking 4 or 5 charges, and that happens. I mean, it's not like it doesn't happen. It does happen, and you have to get it done before you leave. So sometimes you're there several hours after your shift and you're typing. And with these new disclosure laws and everything, you have to prepare even more, whether it's video evidence, radio transmissions, surveillance from maybe a business, all that stuff we have to gather now and hold for a long period of time.
So you would have to go back and it happened in Margaret Street. You might have to go to those businesses, look at their webcams, look at everything, and then start doing an investigation.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
So
it doesn't stop there. It just keeps going.
Yeah. And I mean, I would think even just writing up detailed reports, because I've had to go to the trooper barracks a couple times in my life to file something, and you sit down with an officer, and they just sit there, and it's just like they're typing like a school paper, like they're just going through and like details, and it's fairly specific because I mean, like you said, you got to because I'm sure if it gets to the court case or if it becomes something, you have to have all your ducks in a row.
Yep.
Especially when it's fresh in your memory, and it's not like everybody else trying to remember back, and you guys see so many cases like you miss details where things get embellished or just forgotten because of time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, fresh in my brain, I can do. And do you find that? I mean, does the work stay with you a lot? Are you good about separating the two? Because you could go from, like you said, seeing some like obviously the worst of the worst stuff to like the next day you got a family party. You know what I mean? It's just
it's definitely there is a dark side to it, and everybody is different. Some people handle their stress differently than others. You know, I don't drink and do the drugs, and hopefully not because I'm a police officer, but my outlet was the gym or the Harley, time with family. That's my outlet. Can I sever work from home? I can honestly say no. But that I'm a thinker. I think all the time. I wonder, you know, did I get everything done? You know, did I articulate this enough? Is that kid safe tonight? You know, there's a lot that goes on that people don't want to talk about, but the police know about. Domestic violence, suicides, overdoses, child abuse, sexual assaults. Those are things that people either they don't want to talk about and they don't know about it unless they personally had it, some type of event in their life. And you asked me if I either take it home or remember. I remember every suicide. It's tough, you know, when somebody is, you know, it's unfortunate they came across a time in their life where they decided to hang themselves, and they leave a collage of their family in front of them on a coffee table, and, you know, wife and 2 kids recently separated. One of these are just coming up in my head as we're talking about it. And, you know, to see that person end their life in that way and leave a note that they miss their family and they can't go on and live alone anymore. And you have to be the one to tell the family that their loved one has just taken their life.
And that's the call you've had to make?
Absolutely.
Oh, God. I mean, are those... I'm assuming that death sticks out the most out of anything.
It does. I think death is more traumatic, I would say. You know, then you go to post-traumatic, you know, syndrome, and it's one of those things that if it doesn't affect you, I don't think anybody can get numb enough or it doesn't affect you, because every case is different. Every person's different. Each case, they have family members. They have people that love them. You know, and to be that person, as a police officer, you might be the only police contact that person's ever had in their life, and you're telling them that a loved one has just committed suicide. I mean, it's an awful thing. And that's one of the stresses, I think, especially with COVID, with the depression and, you know, mental health and addiction. Those are the things that, you know, I am trying to help bridge those gaps and build those relationships to help people that are in that dark place. So now,
and I don't want to get too much off because we'll probably touch base on some of that stuff again, but your role now as being, you know, the community resource officer, this is kind of go into that. When did this start? When are you the first person to take this on? Are you the founding, you know, title holder of that? Or
yeah, so there were several leaders and members of the community that reached out to our department managers requesting, you know, a community center so police can be more engaging with the public and, you know, to try to make quality life issues better, not just downtown, but in this community, any surrounding communities. So back in November of 2018, I was assigned this position. I've been there almost 20 years, and there was never a position like this. You know, we have a juvenile officer, we have a public housing authority officer, we have detectives, we have people in patrol. So we never had anybody specifically for community policing. Boots on the ground, you know, be down there, be a friendly, familiar face, try to address the quality of life issues. Try to be a partnership with local businesses. That's one of the first things I did when I got down there. I reached out to every business downtown. I brought my business cards. You know, is there anything that I can do for you? You know, and if it's a restaurant, I would get a menu, and I would give them my business card, and I would bring all the menus. I have a collection of them down at the community center, and I figure that's one of the ways I can help, because people use it as an information center. We're a college town. People drive here and they visit to see if they want to bring their daughter or their son to college. And hey, where's the best place to get pizza? Where can I get a cup of coffee? You know, I'm looking for gluten-free bread so I can get a sandwich for my daughter. Like, you know, and they appreciated that. I've also collaborated on events and stuff with these local businesses and large corporations. So when we first started, it was, where's this thing going to go kind of thing. And I'm, you know, very grateful on the platform that I've been provided.
So what when you said 18 this started?
Yep, November 2018.
So November of 2018, like what was the focus of this? Like when this whole position was created, what was the goal you guys were trying to accomplish?
It was to be having the police more engaging with the public. And how that was done was going to be based on whoever's going to be put in that position, where they're going to take it, and whether it's going to be successful or not. So the first year is paid for by asset seizure money. Obviously, if there's a space in downtown Plattsburgh, it's a nice space. We have a great landlord. You know, he has been very supportive in what we do. He's glad we're down there. So the space being the community center at 79 Margaret Street, it's a very warm, welcoming environment. When people walk in, they don't feel like it's like a cold, kind of like a jail or even a police station. A lot of people don't like going to the police station, right?
No, it's not. Usually, you're not there for good reasons for the most part, unless you're a kid going on a tour. But I mean, it's right. And for people that don't know, it's pretty much down the main corridor of Margaret Street, probably across from like the Himalayan, Twisted Carrot, kind of in that.
Yep, right across from the Himalaya. Yes.
Yeah. So it's right downtown, very prominent position in location wise, and I would agree that it looks more of like an information hub than it looked like anything else, and it's kind of one. Even though I know it's there, it's still that I like. What do they do it? Like, what is that for? Because it's different. You usually think like police officer, you think the station, down, down behind Stafford, and like that. You see cars patrolling, but you don't see a position of like this is another branch or another category or another category. You know what I mean? Like another branch of the police department. Now, being a community service center and starting that position, have you found that? What was it? I mean, was it needed, do you think? Or was this something that, like, did you do it out of necessity? Did you do it out of, like, maybe social change in social, because obviously, like, 2020 was obviously a pretty challenging year for cops nationally. Did you find, this was obviously a couple years prior to that, did you find that potentially social changes were causing that? Do you find that there was just a need or did you just say, hey, we don't really need it, but there's a huge opportunity that we can capitalize on?
I think it all started because of people in our community requested it. So it was something that was researched and looked into. And if they had the right person in there doing all the right things, then it would be successful. And I look upon it now and I say, well, we have a New York State governor who had an executive order, 203A, that is dozens and dozens of pages long, on recommendations for criminal justice reform. Well, you bet I went through it, and 5 or 6 pages, they mention a community policing program. So I look at it this way. We're 2.5 years ahead of the game. They're requesting these recommendations by April 1st. Everything's in place already. We have a community center. We deal with people with addiction. We try to help the underprivileged. I work with foster kids. I work with people with mental illness. I work with people with addiction, local businesses. These are things that in the executive order they're recommending, and we're already there. So when this first opened up, you have this space. So what do you do with this space? Well, what's your mission? What's your plan? So people in the community said, well, Ted Kowalczyk was actually one of the people in the community. He started the Ted K Center over in the housing projects. Why? To try to reach the youth and people that may not have, the middle class, upper class salaries, because those are people too, right? So he was asking about this. It was originally opened up as a substation, and people are like, why do you need another police station? Is this a drunk tank for people downtown? I can tell you this right now. I invite anybody that is listening. They can come down to the community center. It's a very warm, welcoming environment. When you first walk in, there's a coffee station with snacks and bottled water and coffee and hot chocolate, which is used almost daily. People come in, even people that are cold outside, the homeless, whatever, it doesn't matter. People come in and use it. There's an information board of all kinds of services that we provide. It's a very relaxed, warm environment. People that normally wouldn't go and speak to the police have come in and have long conversations with me.
So do you have people that come in, like you said, it could be coming in for information, could be people that are curious, could be people that, I guess, do you host events there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we'll get to that. So people that might be coming just because they have an event or a meeting with you. Do you have any people that come in kind of, substance abuse, mental illness, that come to you and say, hey, do you have any recommendations on this?
Yeah. I don't know if you want to go back a little bit. When we first opened, like, one of the first major things that happened that blew up and went viral, and this is the kind of direction that we knew we wanted to go. And if I could just tell that story real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it was Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2018. It was single-digit temperatures. It was cold. I was walking the beat and stopping in with businesses and saying happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and I had come around the corner from Protection Avenue onto Margaret Street. I see this young man, late teens, early 20s, young black man, and looked like he was lost and trying to get service. He had a cell phone, which I found out it was an international phone, and he was from Paris, France. He didn't have a hat on, didn't have gloves on. He was dragging luggage. So it looked out of place to me, not because of the color of his skin, but because it's
freezing out in the North
It's
Country.
freezing out. He's not, it looks like he's not prepared for the weather. He's dragging luggage. Who drags their luggage downtown, when it's that cold? So I decided to stop and say, hey, are you okay? And he told me it was a long story in a very heavy French accent. And I said, that's okay. I said, I have a community center a couple doors down. It's really cold out. Why don't we stop in there to get warm? And I can see if I can try to help you out. He says, I'm trying to get cell phone service because it's an international phone. I'm from Paris, France. I didn't have internet at the time down at and that's another story, but I didn't have internet at the community center, but I got him down in the community center, got him something warm to drink. I let him use my department cell phone. So his closest family was in Chicago, Illinois. He's a student up in Montreal. He decided a week before Christmas to go with friends from his college down to New York City to visit some of their friends for the holiday. And when he tried to go back up to the border, his visa expired. And he had $20 in his wallet. And they were able to get him a cab ride to Plattsburgh for $17. So he had $3 remaining. We're sitting down talking. He was able to get a hold of his mom's sister, spoke to me on the phone. They haven't been in touch with him for over 24 hours. Last they knew, he was in New York City. They thought he was going to be in Montreal and then fly to Paris for the holidays. So they hadn't heard from their kid. He's 22 years old. You know, his name was Eric. Desperate times calls for desperate measures sometimes, you know, and I wanted to see what I could do to try to help him get to where he needed to be. Chicago's a long way. Paris, France is a long way. Since I didn't have internet at the time, I brought him to the sandwich shop. I don't know if you remember that place on the corner. And
where Incas is now.
Yep. And Jeff Watts was great. I said, Jeff, this young man is from Paris, France. Can he log on to your internet? He's got Amtrak train tickets. His mom sent him, but he can't get to open up the phone because he doesn't have service. It was sent through email. And he said, absolutely. So I gave him the password. And then all of a sudden, all these messages and voicemails and emails came up, and he pulled up his train ticket from Plattsburgh to Chicago. It's a 28-hour ride. It ended up being over 30 hours. I told him to screenshot it because if he were to leave, then he wouldn't have the train ticket with him. And then I said to Jeff, I said, can we get him something to eat? I said, Eric, you hungry? He says, yes. He said, but I only have $3. And he felt obligated to take out his wallet and open it up and show me that he only had $3. And I told him, I said, I trust you. I'm not worried about that. So you're building trust, you know, with each other in that moment that you're actually trying to help somebody. And I don't know what the stigma that the police have, you know, what were his encounters with people in uniform, never mind in a foreign country. So Jeff's like, I'll get him whatever he wants. And I went to go pay for it. And Jeff's like, no, I got it. And then Jeff and I are kind of like having this dispute in the store. Who's going to pay for Eric's food? Not out of recognition, but out of respect. So Eric was provided a large sub, French fries, 2 drinks that Jeff's staff made up, and they covered the food. So after he ate, he actually took half of them with him because he's going to be on a 28 to 30 hour train ride. I gave him my business card, and I said, Eric, I want you to call me. I know it's Christmas Eve, but I want to make sure that you get there and that you get there safely. If you run into any problems, whether it's with like getting redirected or you have some issues or even with the police, give me a call. When you get there, could you send me an email? He sent me an email when he arrived there and talked about he has renowned faith in humanity because of how he was treated in the city of Plattsburgh. And that was the first thing that happened at the community center that we're like, yeah, we're here to help people. We're here to be a positive police presence. You know, it's not for the shakedown. It's not for the tickets. It's not for the arrests. It's not, you know, where people feel like they're harassed. It's more of a, what can we do to help you if you're part of our community or you're in our community? And that was kind of like the starting point of, and me thanking Jeff Watts and the people at the sandwich shop for helping me help somebody else. And this is where you get into community, right? The word unity is in community. So we're coming together and we're unifying to help somebody that's from another country. And they were so appreciative, and it made me feel so good. And it just seemed to take off after that. Like everything, as far as even mental illness and addiction. If you want to get into that, about being the first and only police officer that's certified as a recovery coach and a peer advocate.
Talk about that.
The first year that the community center opened, we used asset seizure funds to pay the rent, to try to get some equipment, and to basically start the place and have it running for a year. So it was a pilot program. If it was successful, we had to think of some long-term sustainability. What were we going to do to try to keep this place open if it's successful? Well, after community events like Coloring with a Cop and Schools Out, Kids Count, and, working with the foster kids and the mentorship program, the Youth Explorers law enforcement program, that was huge. And we could talk about that too. It just grew and grew and grew, and people wanted to be a part of it. So you're successful when they come to you and they say, can we work together? Is there something that we can do, or can you help? Or, I was getting phone calls and having meetings with people from like Staples. Like, I'm having a back to school event. I see what you're doing in the community. Can you help? So after the first year, the second year was starting to come around, and of course everybody worries about funding. But because of the things that we did for the first year and getting so involved in the community and bringing people together and helping those in need, we teamed up with Rochelle Gregory and the Clinton County Mental Health and Addiction Services. And we were able to get a state grant. And that grant not only provided enough funds to keep that place open for another year, but it also brought in people in the mental health profession to actually work out of the community center. So they had people from the Clinton County Addiction Services come down to the community center to work out of the office, and people from National Alliance for Mental Illness, from NAMI, also had peer advocates and staff that would come down to the community center and have meetings down there, like group meetings. They would also have one-on-one conversations. There's an office in the back that's private if they wanted to be private. So that was another, the big thing about that grant for the second year for the state is, before they proceeded with the grant, they said, well, if this Officer Miller is a real deal, then we would like him to be trained to be a recovery coach. I didn't know what a recovery coach was at the time. I'm a police officer, right? What do you usually deal with when you're a police officer when it comes to narcotics? It's usually a drug investigation or arrest. Mm-hmm. So the chief said, would you consider this? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I looked at my schedule. I'm like, oh, darn, I'm on vacation. And he's like, well, you don't have to do it. I said, yes, I do. I do have to do it. So I ended up going to recovery coach school. It was a couple weeks long. And the instructors were Dennis King from Champlain Valley Family Center and Nick Dubé from NAMI. And it was eye-opening. I can tell you that the first day I stood up and I said, I could have went in and with jeans and a hat and a T-shirt and tried to sit in the corner, but we have Class A's, which I'm wearing today, and we have Class B's, which is more of like the polo with Plattsburgh City Police on the front and khaki pants, and you still have your badge and your gun and your handcuffs, but it's not a Class A uniform. So I went in with that because I didn't want to deceive anybody, and I stood up. Everybody had to stand up and say why they were there. And I stood up and I identified myself and I said I was a police officer. And at the looks that I got, you got to remember, the majority of people in that classroom are recovering addicts. Mm-hmm. And there is a stigma with people with addiction, and there's a stigma with police officers. So people's heads slowly turned around to look at me, and their eyes were wide open. And then I got some scowls. And then I said, I just want to let everybody know that I'm not here for information purposes. I'm not here to see if anybody has narcotics, if they're staying clean. I'm here to help people. And that made a big difference. It opened their eyes to say, wow, there's a police officer. And it only took a couple of days. I had, people sitting at my table that hated cops. they were in, one was so desperate she had to sell herself to support her habit. And she had been arrested a dozen times. She hated the police. Mm-hmm. And after a couple of days of working together in groups and, sharing stories and talking about addiction and what we can do to help, she gave me a hug and asked if I would write a little note in her, it's kind of like a little graduation booklet. Mm-hmm. And, it took off from there. So it's something that's rare. They told me before I took that class that it was going to be groundbreaking. And when you hear groundbreaking, whether you're in business, whether you're in policing, whether you're in a certain service or training, when you hear groundbreaking and you're a part of it, you want to be a part of it, mm-hmm. So it flourished from there.
Again, I think when you talk about going into a position like that, typically, I think the police, like you said, if you're reaching out, saying you're trying to help, but coming from a place where a lot of it is breaking down the barriers. So I think at the end mm-hmm. of the day, someone that struggles with addiction or mental illness or, like legitimate, things that people deal with, sometimes they would feel scared or, maybe self-conscious about reaching out for help, knowing, hey, the police typically put people like me away, mm-hmm. instead of saying, hey, listen, I need you as an ally. And mm-hmm. I think the way you're doing it and the way that the police department has kind of shifted this view is that, like you said, the unity of community mm-hmm. is so important because one, it allows you as, someone that maybe, like you said, it was groundbreaking and eye-opening for you. Mm-hmm. Now you have a little bit more empathy for these people and then mm-hmm. know what they're struggling with. Or, again, you can kind of look at their situation and know what might be their objection or concern or hesitation to sit at my table and talk to me at one of these events mm-hmm. versus giving me a look maybe the first day to bridging that gap, saying, hey, talk to me. I'm a resource. I want to help you. Mm-hmm. What's your issue? Let me see if I can brainstorm as a friend, peer, whatever you want to call it, versus thinking that this is two sides that are kind of, like almost like two rivals trying to butt heads.
Right.
It has that, what are we, just over 2 years now? Have mm-hmm. you seen that shift happen quicker than you thought it would? Or is it happening on pace, or do you think there's still a lot more you have to do?
I think how it happens, how fast it happens, why it happens, all those questions are, it's not really a force, but it is a push to try to promote that relationship, to, like you said, it is breaking barriers, it is bridging gaps. And on my logo, I have bridging gaps and building relationships, because you could bridge the gap, but you might just barely connect, but you have to build on top of that. So after becoming a recovery coach, I reached out to people like Conifer Park and Champlain Valley Family Center and MHAB, and I was part of the Spark team. I don't know if you've Substance Prevention, Abuse, and Recovery of Clinton County. A friend of mine, Ed Kirby. I don't know if you know him, but
Ed from Rotary?
Yes.
He came here once in the duck costume, so I have a lot of respect for a man that dresses in a duck costume.
Yes, and he's about the right height. But, yeah. But he's part of my committee of the Youth Explorers program, and that's a whole nother topic. But after we had met and we had a 2-hour conversation, he talked to me about how he had lost his son to addiction, and it tore me up. And I see those things, like when you're on the job, you see somebody that's overdosed, and now we have Narcan and we administer Narcan, and people don't realize the men and women of Plattsburgh Police Department are saving people all the time, but we just don't put it in the paper. We're not advertising that. John Smith had an overdose, and we had to give him 3 doses of Narcan just to keep his heart going and to keep him alive, basically. So like Ed Kirby's part of the committee for my Youth Explorers, and when he told me that story about his son, and we're still close to this day, and he was actually on present during the Rotary when I did a presentation yesterday. And I have a lot of respect for Ed, and he introduced me to Spark, that's Substance Prevention, Abuse, and Recovery, Clinton County. So I was attending those meetings every month in uniform, and there was all walks of life that were there to help support people with addiction, people that the public might not have a clue. There's former judges there. The district attorney was there. The city police, myself, and state police were there. People from Homeland Security, counselors, BHSN, like Conifer Park, Champlain Valley Family Center, Clinton County Addiction Service. All those people were there together to try to help this cause and what they can do. Not for enforcement.
As community members.
Yeah. And, then it moved on to, I don't know if you've heard anything or much about Conifer Park.
I'm aware of it, but probably not detail.
So it's basically they help people if you have, let's say, meth or heroin addiction, and they could provide a certain medication to get you off those street drugs that are very dangerous. These drug dealers are putting fentanyl in it, so you are near death or die from that one injection or one dose of that street narcotic. And usually the police aren't really well received there because people there maybe they're court ordered to go get treatment. Maybe they just got arrested the week prior. Maybe they're still using and seeking help, and if they see somebody in uniform, they freak out. Did they leave a pipe on them? Are they still high from last night? And are they coming here for a warrant? Like, do I have a warrant? So I met with, I don't know if you know Chad Rollings, but he was actually...
I went to school with Chad.
Yeah, so Chad was, he was in my recovery coach.
Chad's great.
School.
I love Chad. Yeah.
And, Chad and his background, he would look over at me in class and kind of like, why is there a cop here kind of thing. And
It sounds like him too.
Like, what's up with that? Him and his long beard, but
luscious beard.
And to this day, he comes down to the community center once or twice a week. But we established a relationship from that class. He knew where I was coming from. I knew where he's been. And then I appreciated the fact because it's not where you've been, it's where you're at. Mm-hmm. And right now, he is trying to help people who was in the same situation that he was in. And that took him in the wrong direction in life. And now he's trying to make things better, not only for himself, but for others. I respect that. Mm-hmm. So him and I, we had this bond, and he wanted me to meet Amanda, the director of Conifer Park. So Amanda Leary. So she actually came down to the community center, and me and Chad and Amanda sat down, and we were talking, had a long conversation. And Amanda says, well, Brad, what would you suggest? How can we make a difference? And I said, how about me going into your groups and talking to your people? And at first she's like, oh boy, like, no, I don't think that's going to fly. Like, when the police go there, they're usually arresting somebody. I said, let's change that. If you want change, be that change. Mm-hmm. And it opened her eyes. So I first met with the staff and the peer advocates and the counselors, and we had a great conversation. And then I was invited to do a group meeting with clients. First time it's ever happened. This was just before, it was pre-COVID. And we sat down at a table and we had open dialogue. And the discussions that we had needed to be had. But after talking and having that open dialogue, it really did open up eyes on both sides of the fence. So it really was, it was therapeutic, not only for me, but it was for the people that were there. And now Chad will bring clients down to the community center to have like a small group meeting, mm-hmm. to have a different aspect, or maybe they have some legal issues and I can't give legal advice, but this is how I can help you. Like, this is the direction you need to go, or if you're on parole, providing services. And it just, it just blossomed after that. So
Now are you dressed as you are now? Your class A, you used to call it, when you go to these meetings.
if I'm going to, let's say if I'm going inside behind the walls of Conifer Park, and when I went, I was in Class B's. I was in the polo shirt, but they knew I was a police officer. But it kind of gives that
Casual.
yeah, they know who I am, and they know what I do. But there's a different side of the job.
I mean, this outfit is more grabs your attention more. Maybe for them, probably more intimidating than rolling in like that. So now, do you go into like a meeting like that? Is that considered like a safe space in the sense of, I'm sure you go in, and for them to open up, is there stuff that, if they were to say that stuff outside of that space, would that have been troublesome for them? Or like you said, maybe it's information that they divulge. It's almost like going to confession when you go to church.
Right,
like you tell the priest something that you may not want anybody else to know, but do you find that it's kind of like a confession thing? And then once you leave the doors, it's kind of like, we're just going to leave what was said here, because this is kind of your space to, whether it's recovery, whether it's, try to find, help or a shining light kind of deal.
Yeah. So I have to sign waivers. And the clients also have to sign waivers that they're given permission to have this discussion, because it's confidential and you get into HIPAA and things like that. So, and the conversation could go anywhere from, needing a place to stay to 100 days sober to how can I get my kids back to I hated the life that I lived. So we talk about a lot of things, and unless they're a threat to themselves or somebody else, obviously if I'm in a meeting with somebody and they say, when I leave here, I'm going to harm myself, I have to take action.
Yeah.
And I explained that in the beginning. But if somebody said, I was sober for 100 days and last night I was overly stressed because I lost my mom and I ended up, using. I'm not going to say, well, that's illegal and I'm going to get a statement from you and we're going to charge you for it. That's not how it works. We're going to have an open dialogue and we're going to build trust.
And that trust, you find that the dialogue now is going deeper and deeper and
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I got a referral, and believe it or not, I get referrals from people with that work with people with addiction to come down and talk to me. And just 2 weeks ago, I got a referral of a 25-year-old that, has the mentality of like maybe a 13-year-old, and during COVID wasn't at work because they were closed at the time, and so he spent a lot of time at home. He just moved away from his parents. His parents are very concerned about him because when he got bored, he started playing on the computer and searching things and adult material, and he thought he saw something that, you got to think, if it's a mentality of a 13-year-old, he thought he saw something that may have been illegal as far as age, and he was so worried about it and worked up over it for 2 months every day and every night, and didn't sleep, and constantly like reaching out to his parents and didn't know what to do, and was going into depression and paranoia and all this stuff. And I was referred, his mom said, go down and speak to Officer Miller. So when it comes to like adult material, if you're watching it every day, there's an addiction, right? And some people have never heard of it, but yes, there is an addiction regarding, it. I don't know if people will laugh or whatever, but porn addiction. It's
that's what it is. I mean, it's porn addiction. Yeah,
it's an addiction. So, but he was so worked up, thought that he was going to be put in prison, and so when I spoke to Mom on the phone, she was so concerned about him. Like I can't even, unless she was here and expressed how much concern she had for her son. And I said, I would like to meet with you. She said, if you could give me some of your time and help him, it would be wonderful. So we met later that day, and he came down, and he was very forthcoming. He showed me his phone, what site he was on. I saw a disclaimer at the bottom that, all models are 18 or older. Told him to screenshot it. That's going to make him feel a little more at ease. If you're 18 or older, you're an adult. And then he had a lot of questions that I answered, and I put him at ease, and he almost like just fell in his chair.
The weight just lifted.
And he did. He said, I feel so much lighter. And he said, I just want you to know that you saved my life. He said, before I came here, before I met with my mother to come here to speak to you, I wanted to kill myself. Yeah. I was trying to find a way that I was going to do it today. You saved my life. He started crying.
Wow.
Mom started crying. And I got choked up.
Yeah,
I mean, how can you not?
Yeah.
How can you not? And I checked on him less than a week later, and he's doing much better and, able to go on with his life. And it's just things like that, the stories that you don't hear about that go on in the community center.
Do you find that, do you have reoccurring relationships with some people if you feel like they need like the check-in, or like you said, if he feels the trust in you and it's like, okay, Officer Miller was someone that helped me at a certain time, just like a periodic every couple of weeks or every month, every, few days, depending on the situation. Like, hey man, you doing good? Like, can you come down and talk? Do you want to?
Absolutely. And some of them I befriend, and, I can tell you right off the bat, I know you said I could swear on here. I'm trying to, but listen, I was working the beat one night, and it was busy, and we were having some issues with fights and territories and drugs and all that stuff. And you wouldn't think in Plattsburgh, New York, but it was just myself and my partner at the time. And all of a sudden a large fight broke out near the monopole, like in the parking lot back there. I heard a scuffle, and you have to be on high alert all the time. And so we go running down the alley. It's dark. It's 2:00 in the morning. 8 or 9 guys going at it. You see 5 guys with 1%er patches on they call it their cut, which is a term for the vest. Yeah, okay. The 1%er is a 1%er patch. 99% of motorcyclists are law-abiding citizens. There's the 1%ers.
This is like the Hells Angels?
Hells Angels, yeah. Outlaws, up here is the Uneasy Riders.
Okay.
So there's so many 1%ers, but there's so little population of motorcyclists that are 1%ers. It's people say, oh, they're gangs, drugs, guns, girls. That's what they work with, and they were actually fighting people that were Russian. This is Plattsburgh, New York.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
so there's
half a mile away.
Yeah. There's 2 officers. And there's 9 guys. I don't think one guy was under 6 foot. Of course, I took the biggest, baddest. I mean, this guy was a badass. And when I took him off, do you arrest all 9 guys with 2 pair of handcuffs? Or if you're lucky, maybe 3 pair of handcuffs and 2 guys that are physically fighting? Or do you split it up? You maintain the peace, and you speak to somebody in the group. Well, I happen to pick the sergeant of arms. Sergeant of arms is the guy that if you need something done, or heads are rolling, it's TCOB. It's taking care of business. That's the sergeant of arms. Has it on his
he's
his
the
vest.
Leader. He's top.
Well, there's your president, your vice president, but the sergeant of arms is like the guy that.
He's like the COO of the or CEO of like the.
Let me put it to this way. Terms. He's like, you have generals and lieutenants and stuff like that. The sergeant of arms would be the guy where if somebody is mouthing off or somebody's screwed them over or somebody needs a good talking to, you bring the sergeant of arms. He's the enforcer. So that would be a good way to put it.
He's like the hockey enforcer. He's gonna go into the penalty box.
Yeah. He's a guy with no teeth and all tattoos and but here's this guy and And once I pulled him off, he assumed the position. He turned around and he put his hands behind his back. And I turned him back around so we're face to face. And he looked at me like, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to talk to you like a man. And he didn't know what to say. And he's like, what? You're not going to cuff me and take me in and book me? I said, no. I want to know what the hell happened. And he looked at me like he had never, ever heard that before. We ended up having a pretty lengthy conversation. We were able to maintain the peace. The Russians ran away. I don't think they wanted to get arrested. But since that day, him and I are pretty close. Like, he comes down in the community center.
Wow.
He had some issues with addiction. When I say issues, I'm talking about in his 30s, he had 3 heart attacks and a stroke because of his issues. Okay. He was going to lose his family, his home, his job, his life, and the life that he lived. So next time I saw him, we would have another little talk. It's just him and I. We'd pull off to the side. We'd have a talk. Then you have that stigma with bikers, 1%ers, outlaws. Then you have the stigma with the police. You know, all those effing pigs and all those outlaw bikers and, you know, those criminals or whatever you want to call them. But you know what? Sometimes you have to see through. That's why I wish people would see through a police officer's uniform to realize there's a heart and there's a soul and there's a mind behind it. And that's how...
Or a community member, like you said.
Yeah, yeah. So I tried to, you know, not like he was a wounded bird or something, but I tried to talk to him a little bit at a time one-on-one, and he was very like, he said, I don't know what it is, man, but I feel like I can talk to you. I said, anytime. We started calling each other brother, you know? So a month or so goes by. I have a new recruit with me. I'm a field training officer. New recruit sitting in the car. We call it the Diamond. It's right downtown where Shaboom's used to be. I don't know if you remember that area. Bogarts. Is that before your time?
Oh, right down here.
Yeah, right in the corner, like a bridge in Margaret Street.
Yep.
So Ashley's Furniture's there. It used to be Bogarts, another bar. And then...
up on the roof there. Is that what it was? Okay.
Yes,
Before my time, but
So there was more establishments downtown as far as like drinking establishments at the time. It was pretty busy, and I had the rookie with me, and there was five patch members, outlaw bikers, and the same group, and they're standing on the corner, and you know a lot has been going on with some controversy, some fighting, all that stuff, but somebody that I befriended was in there. And I said to the rookie, I said, see those guys over there? Look at their patches. This is what 1% patch means. This is what this patch means. And that patch. This is their rocker panels. Like everything means something on their patch. And he's like, how do you know all this stuff? I said, well, I know some people, and you know, I did my research. And he's like, oh, he goes, they look like some badasses. And I said, well, they are. I said, we're going to break them up right now. And he's like, we're going to what? I said, we're going to get out of the car, and we're going to go over there, and we're going to break up the group. And you hear this lump in his throat. The kid could barely swallow. And we get out of the car. And I see my new buddy in the center, and he's got his group with him. And I'm a police officer, so they're like, oh, shit, it's the cops, you know?
On edge,
yeah. And their head's on a swivel, too. So when I go up there, I said, you. And he turns around, and we look at each other. And then we confront each other and give each other a brotherly handshake and then a big hug. I got this rookie looking at me with his jaw dropped on the ground and wiping the sweat off his brow, like, whew. And then... he's got the guys that are part of the club,
head spinning,
that are looking like, what the hell, man? That's a pig, you know? That's 5-0. That's, you know, and there ended up being a mutual respect for one another. The next time I saw them, there were some other issues going on, but when somebody like him tells me, if you need anything, we got your back. Now you've gotten into that trust factor, right? And the other guys were like, he goes, man, and they said, no, I'm telling you, like this is different, like, you know, and it meant a lot to me. And when I walked by, I said, listen, I'll trade my colors for yours for 2 weeks. Like they had a roundtable meeting, and they brought that comment up. Hey, this cop, man, said he would trade his colors for ours, you know, for 2 weeks because of all the shit that they go through. And, you know, then you end up learning about each other, you know, and realizing, and to this day, he still comes down to the community center. We have coffee. I shoot him a text. I got him involved in the Spark meetings. He wants to become a recovery coach. He's been clean and sober. He tells me I saved his life. I tell him that you're the one that decided that you needed help. It's up to you.
So someone like this, like did he get involved in this through, like you said, addiction, through like kind of getting with the crowd that he was a part of because of this?
I you know, without going into detail, he was involved in some issues as a child in his life, and you know, that would be traumatic. And he was looking for that brotherhood. Some people find it in policing, you know, and some people find it in gangs or clubs, and that's where
Just similar background, similar situation experience.
Yep,
Yeah.
and you know, that rebel mentality. I'm a renegade. You know, I ain't afraid of anything, kind of thing. So he got into that life and realized that he needed to, after years, he needed to get out of it, not only to save his life, but to save his family.
Do you find that you kind of, again, you talked about, you know, bridging gaps and building relationships, that
Yes.
you doing that, like, basically was like, hey, here's the bridge for you to pull out of that life into this life, and thinking that it might be something that he always wanted deep down, and that you were just the one that possibly showed up at the right time and almost made it okay for him, or gave him, like you said, the trust in you that I can't do this, and I have a friend on the other side to kind of pull me out of this.
Yep. Yeah, he went off the grid for a while because of obvious reasons of what type of life he was involved in, but to make it right for him and his family. And then I ran into him, and he looked a lot different. And ever since we reunited, we keep in touch with each other. I have people in our community board, and those little kind of like Polaroid shots,
Yeah.
but they're the little mini ones.
Yeah.
And so I try to get pictures of people in the community that have come down, and I asked him I said, do you mind, man, if I get a picture of you? And he's got this nice ride. It's an old classic, and you know, it's all black, and he's always wearing black T-shirts and jeans, and he's got tattoos on the knuckles and the neck, and you know, the whole 9 yards, you know, and big guy. He's like, yeah, man, yeah, anything for you. Took a picture of him, and I said, I usually like to put a little comment, not only who you are, but maybe what you're about, because I only have this much room, right? On the little snapshots. It's little cute Polaroids, I guess. And he's like, I don't know, man. Can you think of something? I said, yeah, I can. So I started writing on a little picture with my marker. And he said, would you call me? I said, I called you Second Chance.
Yeah.
You know, and it just chokes me up right now because he got choked up, and, you know, we gave each other a hug, and it's just, those are type of relationships that you, not only are you proud to have, but you build upon. Like, you know, one of his guys had a warrant out for his arrest, and anti-police, violent, and, you know, when he was in the club, and we had already, apparently I had this reputation with people in the club, and he didn't want to talk to any effing pigs, is what we were referred to. And then he heard I was on the other side of the door, and I told him who I was, and he said that I would be the only one that he would talk to. So I was able to go in, talk to him, tell him I don't want this to go the other way. Let me take him into custody. Let's take care of his warrant and see if we can get him some help. And nobody got hurt. And, to make that kind of impact is just, you can't put a dollar value on it. You really can't.
No, I mean, it's, again, I have no relationship at all with in the police, in the sense I've never been in law enforcement, but it's, it's the same thing. And, I'd say there's a parallel to business in that, relationships that you meet that seem insignificant at the time or small things, they could have an impact down the road. And there's plenty of times in my career this has come up where something's happened, typically a good thing, and it happened because of something you did months, years ago. It could have even just been a smile, a small conversation, helping them out, maybe something that you just kind of, like you with the gentleman with the sub, like just doing something that you didn't have to do, but just like, hey, helping someone out, helping another human out.
Yep.
Then it comes back tenfold, and you're just like, honestly, I forgot all about that, but you made an impact. And I think the stuff that you're doing, one, it's needed, but I think this has been going for 2 years, so it's like as this builds it, and I call it, in our business, I call it like the snowball effect. That like November of 2018. Like you were handed a snowflake and you rolled it once, and then you rolled it twice, and now you're starting to build up a little bit of snowball, and then as you keep going, it grows and grows. And I think every year, every connection that you make is kind of has that spider web effect.
Yep.
Like with this gentleman that you just talked about, like you met, your the brother, the friend that you had, and then that led to this thing that had you never made that, this never would have happened, and that could have escalated to something terrible. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of stuff that you're probably doing now that you might be aware of or not aware of, but I think every year it's going to just keep showing itself. And like, my God, just because I met that guy, because I met that guy, because I met this girl and that, and then these opportunities just keep building and building and building. And again, I think the 2020, I mean, cops made a lot of headlines for the wrong reasons. And it was, unfortunately, cops were generalized in 2020, where if I think people looked at, like you said, the 99% of cops are community members that are good people that are trying. And you saw stuff in 2020 with good showing of cops and cops reaching out and said, hey, if you guys want to march and do it, let's go. Like, let's do this thing. And not us versus them, but like, yes, this is stuff that we have, and I'm against what happened here and what happened there, and that's not how I conduct myself or our department conducts ourselves. And I think for whatever issue that people had in the spike of like defund police and we hate on police and everything else, there's still police go back in history have always been a community member. I always it's obviously a show, but the Andy Griffith Show, I just remember. Like I always think like back in the day, have Andy and Barney, and like they were just community members. They'd go in and get their hair cut, and they'd go down to the store, and they'd be sitting at the diner, and they were just people that if you needed them, they were there for a resource, but they weren't they were community members. And like, hey, I can help. That's like, I sell real estate, you sell, you're not sell, but you're a cop. We're all from the community. We just have different jobs, but we're all trying to better our community. I just think the stuff you're doing is, it's needed. And I just think you're like, having, kind of heard you talk, it's like, I think your mannerisms, I think the way you conduct yourself, I think your background, you have, it's not, I'll be honest, I don't have the background that you had. Like that puts me as a, I would say, a level of or disqualification of some of the stuff that you can deal with, just because I've never lived through it. And like, I think you have the, you can be empathetic to somebody dealing with a broken home or dealing with, abuse or dealing with stuff that, to me, even hearing you say stuff, I'm aware it exists, but hearing you tell stories, it's like, God damn, like I'm not even, like, it's eye opening for me. And I'm kind of like getting choked up listening to some of these stories that are happening like in a couple mile radius of where we're at now. And I want to jump into some of the charity work that you guys have done too, because I know it's not, substance abuse and mental health, but you do a lot of just, I know you guys did the clothing drive. I know you did some stuff. And I want you to dive into it. Some of the stuff you were doing for around Christmas time.
Yes. Yeah. And those, every time I either talk about it or watch the video, I don't know if you've seen the news clips, but Kelly O'Brien from Channel 3 News did such a fantastic job on the first Christmas event that we had, it was, I called it police presents, as in gifts.
Okay.
Presents. And, working with the types of people that I've been able to connect with. And I reached out to a friend of mine, John Bernardi of the United Way. And this was a couple weeks before Christmas. And I said, John, I want to do something, have our department do something, the community center, and then maybe partner with some people in the community. Can you think of anybody right offhand that would be in desperate need? He snapped his fingers. Regina Agony. I don't know if you know this story, but, and I don't want to get too lengthy. I know you only have so much time, but, so Regina Agony, she's in her 60s. Husband was around 70, I believe. They had 2 great-grandchildren that were biracial. And they had lost their mom to addiction, as in she's still alive, but she chose addiction over her kids, moved to Albany to help her addiction, to help feed her addiction, I can put it that way. And Dad was incarcerated. So they knew that their great-grandchildren didn't have a good life and nowhere to go. So instead of ending up in foster care and splitting up, they're 6 and 11 years of age. It's a tough time, right? Mom abandoned them. Dad was incarcerated. So I said, do you think she'll mind if I reach out to her? He says, no, not at all. He says, here's her phone number. So I start talking to her on the phone. And she told me that she wanted to get full custody of the kids. And that's a process, right? Adopting them. And her and her husband got together and said, if we do this together, if we're partners and we can raise these children, they can have a better place than they would have ever had. So they both agreed. Her husband was in the military, and then he sold vegetables down at the farmer's market for 22 years. A couple weeks before Christmas, he had passed away. So now she's on her own. Thinks she's going to lose her house, her car, the boys. Like, what's going to happen? Again, desperate times call for desperate measures. You could hear it in her voice. So I wanted to meet with her. I was telling her what I was trying to do. I was trying to help somebody in need to make the situation better for them for the holidays. And I said, there's a thing called Shop with a Cop where, I've seen Sheriff's Department do it and stuff, where it's a nice gesture, but there's police officers in uniforms and they're taking these kids shopping, and they could, several weeks before Christmas, taking these kids shopping, they could load up the carts with whatever they want, go to the register, and who's paying at the register? They see a police officer paying. Well, who looks like the hero then? Mm-hmm. Right? The police officer. So I wanted to do something totally different. I wanted to call it police presents, as in gifts. And also, we're there, but we're not going to sit there and try to be the hero. So what I did was I took her shopping for the boys. I didn't take the boys shopping and saying, oh, I'm going to spend all this money for you and you're going to have gifts before Christmas. And then your great-grandmother, who doesn't have 2 nickels to rub together, who's not able to get anything when it's Christmas morning, there'll be nothing under the tree. So, again, it's about helping people in need. And she kept saying, well, it's too much. It's too much. It's too much. I said, don't worry about it. We teamed up with Walmart. I mean, largest corporation in the country, if not the world. Maybe besides Amazon, but
it's up there.
Yeah, it's up there. Because there are people that work for one of the largest corporations and successful businesses in the entire world that are people, and they're people of our community. And they might be people in despair and people with addiction and people with mental illness. So there are people in our community. And when I reached out to the managers at Walmart, Floyd Bump and Danielle, Floyd, unfortunately, at 34 years old, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and he passed away. And he was so involved in our community. And that's another story. And I don't know if we'll have time to get back to that. But if you tell me Floyd Bump, I'd like to get back to him. But that's an incredible story too. So there's just so many stories to talk about. And when I do presentations, a lot of times I don't have time to actually explain this into further detail. But so I brought Regina Agony to Walmart. The Plattsburgh Police Department contributed. Walmart contributed. And we took her shopping, and I told her to bring a list. Kelly O'Brien heard about the story and said, what is this that you're doing? Can I be a part of it? She ended up getting the journalism award. It's not Mooson's award. What is it? Mural Award in journalism, which is the most prestigious award you could get, and best story of the year for this story. So if you haven't seen it, I'd suggest, if you type in
police presence
or Plattsburgh Police Department, WCAX, it might pop up. But or if you wanted to after, I can show it to you.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
It was very well done, and it did let people know the meaning behind it. So after we went shopping, she brought the list. We filled up 2 shopping carts with all kinds of things, not just, expensive toys, clothes and things that they need. And I asked her after we finished shopping, I said, would you like me to bring these down and wrap them, or would you like to bring them home? She requested to bring them home and wrap them, and I respected that. Mm-hmm. She brought them home. She wrapped them so the kids could have some. She was thinking about the kids, not about herself. That being said, I teamed up with Amanda Allen from NAMI because she knew the family. And I said, is there a way we can get the kids for a couple hours? She goes, yeah, what are you thinking? I said, I think we should take the kids shopping for their great-grandmother. Because I know being poor and growing up, and being, 13, 14 years old, I felt bad for my mom. Single mom, busting her ass, working 60 hours a week, minimum wage, $3.15 an hour, not getting any child support, not going on the system as far as any services, refused to collect food stamps. So, she had a lot of pride, and she didn't want to do that. So, we were able to get the kids. We went shopping for a couple hours. And when the young one, 6 years old, goes right for a $200 Keurig, I'm like, he's thinking about his great-grandmother. He's not thinking he's being selfish. And I'm like, go ahead, buddy, throw it in there, just picking him up and placing him in the cart and being in full uniform and just having that type of, relationship and bond. And to this day, when I see them or they come down for, events down at the community center, we give each other a high five or fist pumps and stuff. And so we ended up taking them shopping for the great-grandmother. And so the great-grandmother didn't even know, and we didn't want them to bring the unwrapped gifts to the house, so we brought them to the community center. And I've got so many wonderful pictures of the kids helping me wrap all the gifts and the smiles on their faces after all that they've been through. And they sent me pictures of Christmas morning, and it was great. But what further tied me into this, I found out through having discussions with Regina that 6 months prior, I responded to a physical domestic violence incident. And on my arrival, you could tell something happened. The male subject was gone, fled on foot. The 2 kids were there.
These 2 kids.
I didn't know that at the time. And not until we started talking when she said, you probably know their mother. Well, yeah, because I'm the one who responded, got her to safety and a safe house, and charged he wasn't the father, the kids, the gentleman in the life at the time, had beat her up and choked her in front of the kids. This is the kind of life that these kids are living, you know? So he was on parole. He had shot one of his exes in the leg before because she was going to call the police. So there's the fear factor, right? So it ended up being even a more emotional story because I was involved with the same 2 kids and was able to take them out of that home, that abusive home.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
I always tell people we're actually in a train, like right outside the train station. So the Amtrak, this is actually a cargo train, but
I'm a light sleeper. I can't imagine sleeping next to that.
So, kind of we'll divert here while I'm talking, so it's not that great of a story, but when I grew up in a train track, and this is probably slightly farther, but not much farther than this. And then having this and now working here is like full circle. Like I've always been near a train, so like trains, like it's like white noise to me. It makes it a little more difficult talking. So I'm like screaming in. So if you guys are like, I don't know, loud, probably going a little too high in the decibels, but I can sleep through anything. I'm a very deep sleeper, and I always tell people the worst part about growing up was you had to turn the TV up to hear that's it. Like it was just like white noise. Like if you didn't have the TV on, you were reading a book, you didn't even pay attention to it.
I'm very envious of people that can fall asleep quickly and they can go into deep sleep.
As I said with the, and unfortunately this is not an Amtrak. So Amtrak usually whiz by in about a couple seconds. This is nice slow. This is the one that you cringe at when you get behind on a road. And the thing comes down and just sit there. I'm going to be 3 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes
let me
late.
put a different perspective on it. Be in a police car and you have an emergency and you need to get to the other side.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
I was going to say, they're not stopping for the lights. So.
No, we usually have to reroute and find a different way.
And, so go back. So the 2 boys, Regina, I mean, was that...
Yeah. It was, it puts it more into perspective of what they, as children, had to go through in life. And it made that even more special. And to see the pictures back. And then the story that Kelly O'Brien did was awesome. It was done so well that the following year, instead of calling it Police Presence 2 or, just involving the police and Walmart, I wanted to have more members of the community involved. So I called it a community Christmas and asking for donations. And it was it's kind of eye-opening because there were, I was telling you about Ernie Galarza, the Della Group. He rounded up his staff and told them what it was about and said, we need to support this, and collected money. And he handed me an envelope with $611 in it. Montisha, as I know, Community Bank, they contributed $500 for it. Osable Forks Volunteer Fire Department, they contributed. Our Plattsburgh Police Union contributed. So we were getting a lot more people involved, which is the way it should be. And it makes them feel good. And there were, people, average citizens coming down and saying, can I help? Mm-hmm. Can I drop off toys? Can I give you $50? And it got to a point where I had several $1,000s. And I said, you know what? We can help more than one family. We can help more than 2 families. Mm-hmm. We ended up helping like 5 or 6 families and like 15 kids.
Wow. And
there were some that were left over that I took one of my youth explorers because I like to see them get involved in community work. We went up there with quite a bit of cash, and this was, I think it was Christmas Eve or on the December 23rd. There's all kinds of people trying to shop and get things for Christmas. So we decided we were going to sit back and watch for a little bit and see who may be, because they have old worn out sneakers with holes in it, or an elderly couple that was trying to get gifts for their grandchildren, but they're going through their list and they are putting things back. So we would step up to the plate, be behind them in the register, and say, I would like to pay that for you. And they were kind of in shock, like, and then there was another family with 2 kids, and it looks like their clothes didn't fit, the way that they should. They looked like they were a little dirty, and they didn't have much, and they had a lot of, food items and things in their cart, and a couple items of clothes, and maybe a few things that might be like Christmas gifts. And we stepped in and said, we'd like to pay for that. And at first we're like, well, what's the catch? Well, there is no catch. We're just trying to help people. And I would tell them, this is part of a community Christmas. So people in the community got together and they want to help people during the holidays. And it was awesome.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that, like, the last couple of years, I've gotten more involved, in trying to talk to people with charity and stuff. And I think it's just one where you see people, there's a level of gratitude you have in your own life where it's like, luckily I grew up without having a lot of challenges that most people face. But then when you start learning about the challenges that people face, and a lot of it's heartbreaking, especially, like I said, I have 3 young children. So to see anything involving kids is kind of the one where it's like, that really hits me. And I had Nancy McDowell was on the other day, and she was talking about care for seniors because her mother at this time is in that realm, and how they need help, and how, like, so it's always kind of like what you're exposed to. So now being exposed more to, like, parenting kids, that's where like Christmas, the kids that don't have stuff for Christmas, and it like just breaks your heart because like you try to provide, at least as a parent, you try to provide what you can for your child, knowing some can't. They have to they have to pay rent, they have to pay for food, they can't buy or splurge on something that a kid as they should come to expect on Christmas, just because they're a kid, they're naive, they're naive, they're Santa's coming, and and it's heartbreaking, I think, as a parent, knowing you can't provide that experience for the kid, and that these people stepping up. And like I said, we still got this poster board here, but like we do this golf tournament. We've done it for 2 years, and it's just kind of on a whim, fun thing between me and a buddy of mine. And then so the first year we raised a couple grand in 2 weeks to give to JCO and United Way. And then last year, we had fun doing it, so we had a bunch of friends, and we ended up getting up to 12 players. And we ended up raising over $5,000. In a very grassroots kind of like support. This is what it's going to. Went to the backpack program at United Way for funds they would do for kids, and it's kind of one like. There's a lot of. It feels good to give back, but I think a lot of it is not the feeling that you give. It's more of like, I want to give that to you. Like, I think it's not like, I think you're someone that will give. And I think obviously you feel a level of satisfaction, but you don't do it for your own benefit. You do it for, like, hey, I want you to experience something that you probably, it's going to be hard for you to experience right now. And it's not, I think a lot of people don't want to ask for help, and sometimes they may not want to ask you. But I think if it was given to them, and they kind of, I think, would accept it, knowing that it's coming from a good place, and like you said, no catch. It's just like, hey, let's just try to make this experience better than it probably was going to be for you. And I think for a lot of people, like I said, it's just people need bright spots in life, and that even if it's it's just something, that one little extra thing that goes a long ways. And like for you guys, as police too, still prominent members of any community. Like I said, you guys walk around, and not many people walk around in uniform in the community. And I think the cops are always going to have that, they're always going to have that perception, not good or bad, but they're always going to have a perception of that's a cop. Like, you're going to pick out a cop before you can pick anybody else out.
Right.
You can pick cop cars out on the side of the road.
Right, and that's why they have uniforms, and to identify people that are police officers.
And I think if people can get over that and say that's a friend or an ally, hey, I got to avoid that guy. And I think you're doing that. And I think it's. It's kind of the reason I wanted to bring you on. And some of the stuff, I'll be honest, you went above and beyond anything I even expected. I was like, I knew you did this and you did that. And when you start diving into it, it's like, your role in the community center just keeps growing and growing. And I think the relationships you guys are building, like you said, with United Way, or whether it be with, the community. And I think you did the clothes drive just down the road here, right?
Yep. Yes. We were actually approached by David Yoakum of the Community Service Projects of the North Country. And they wanted to do a food drive, but he wasn't quite sure how to go about it. And, I have a lot of contacts and connections. And I said, I could help you out. And ended up placing food bins from Aldi's to United Way to the community center and the Plattsburgh Police Department, down at the City Well Chapter 1. I had them, maybe 10 of them out there, and people just kept giving, and people got on board. Social media can be a great thing. It can be a positive thing, and when you announce something like that, people want to get involved. And for me, that not only helping the people that you're trying to help, but getting people involved so they can feel better about what they're doing and trying to make a difference is also rewarding. So, then the Stafford and Renane Law Office was like, well, we want to donate 20 turkeys. They weren't, I didn't give them a bin of food, but they wanted to donate because they saw what was on social media, like, oh, we want to be a part of that. The Della Auto Group, they bins and bins and boxes of food that I picked up, several times, carloads, and bring them down to the Awakening Remnant Church on Bridge Street, with Pastor Jimmy Canales and Whitney, yes, good people,
great.
So it's one of those things. If you can bring people together for a greater cause and for the better interest of our community, you can't get better. In my eyes, you can't get better than that. So
I use a lot of the term local matters, and I like to have a lot of people that are doing stuff in the community. And it's I'll be honest, I don't know how many people have done more local matters than I think you have, and I think and you guys are continuing to do. And I think a lot of it, like you said, is going deeper than just whether it's a check cut to an organization.
Right.
It's like you're donating time, you're donating resources, you're donating advice, you're donating your experience, you're donating, and for a lot of these leadership, for a lot of these people, like if they don't have, I have nobody to turn to. I don't have a mentor. I don't have a, someone that can help me out of this, situation I'm in. You step to the plate and going above and beyond, going in into groups that, hey, I was looked at a bad guy. I'm now gonna, I want to step across that stigma or that divide, and like you said, bridge that gap. I think it's just absolutely fascinating. For time and to be respectful of your time too. Do you want to talk about your Floyd story?
So just real quick, when the community center first opened up, you want to be able to partner with people, right? Because if you try to do it on your own, I just have a platform to be able to do it through the Plattsburgh Police Department and for the police department, which is in turn for the community. So there's a lot of great men and women in the department that, hands down, I wouldn't want to work with anybody else. And the things that they experience on a daily basis and have to take with them at home and I appreciate still what they continue to do. I play a little different role now, and I can give my experience and stuff, but if I didn't have this platform, it would be so tough to do it, to be honest. You would go from one call to the next call to the next call. And
this allows you focus.
Yeah, and spend that time to sit here with you and do an interview and, be on this podcast. But so in the beginning, I wanted to team up with not only local businesses, but maybe, let's face it, there's more money in larger corporations, right? So, Walmart sometimes gets a bad rap, and I was actually a loss prevention officer, corporate investigator there before I came to the Plattsburgh Police Department, and they had different management there, so it's not like I knew who it was because I've been on the job for already 17 years. So I went to Walmart and I asked to speak to the manager. I'm in full uniform, and the manager comes up and looks at me and said, "Uh-oh, like, am I in trouble?" And I said, "No, you're not. I just wanted to, right off the bat, let him know." And I said, "Do you mind if I talk to you for a few minutes?" And so he brought me in this office, and there were a couple employees in there, and he said, "Do you want them to leave?" And I said, "Oh, if you don't mind, I'd like it to be a private conversation." And he kind of got a lump in his throat. And I said, "Listen, this is who I am. I work for the Plattsburgh Police Department. We opened up a community center. This is what we want to do. We want to hold community events. We want to get people involved." All I had to say was, before I go to Target, I wanted to stop here and talk to you. He said, "You're not leaving." He told me, "You are not going anywhere until you tell me that we're involved in this." And the support has been incredible. So we had a Coloring with a Cop event. They brought down not just crayons and sketch pads and coloring books, but they brought children's bicycles for a free raffle, like donated them. They brought helmets. They bought drinks and snacks. And like, it was like a kid's Christmas. It was, and people came together of all different races and nationalities, and doesn't matter what political side you're on or how much money you made. Like, people came together, and it was a great thing. And then we just built from there, and they wanted to get involved in anything that, they have community grants that they give, and they allowed me to apply for a community grant, and it was no hesitation. I found out usually within a day or two whether it was accepted, and I was told not to worry. So Floyd, who was 34 years old, was, very active, wanted to find a way, a channel, an outlet to give back to the community, but they didn't know how, other than be Walmart, other than be a manager at Walmart. Here we go again.
This one sounds like an Amtrak, so this one should blow by pretty fast. I said, well, the problem is too, there's obviously the road right here, so they got to honk, as they're going by. So usually the worst is they go in the morning sometimes. So if I'm here early, no, I'm lying. It is another Canadian Pacific. So usually they go on, especially when it's early in the morning. Like, I've been here like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and they're just sitting there ripping on this thing. I'm like, dude, had my first sip of coffee. I'm like, I'm not fully awake, and it's just they're cranking on that thing. So it's it's, I don't know.
Kind of looks like the same train. It just turned around and came back.
Reverse it.
Yeah.
Well, it's for the longest time, these weren't even going. Like, a lot of these weren't going because of COVID and the border restrictions. So it was really quiet here. And Amtrak, I think, just started picking back up. And it's kind of cool. The good thing is I used to be down on the track side, and I had another guy, Andy Lamonta, who was actually up, across the hallway. They were down there with us at the same time, so we migrated one level up. But like, the good thing is we just don't deal with like the train traffic down there.
Right.
People standing outside trying to get to your door. People like walking randomly to your door asking for directions. And so it's nice being up here. But yeah, this is the only thing is that for podcasts, and it only happens in the morning. So if this was like an afternoon, evening, like, so anything that's prior to noon, usually you're going to get a train going through at some point during the podcast. So, and I thought we missed it too, because we started around 10:30, 10:45, and I was like, usually it's like 10 o'clock, but now it's So there we go.
It's definitely a beautiful view, the lake. So
that makes up for the noise. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So back to Floyd.
So they got involved quite a bit. They even actually had some of their corporate people come down in one of the events and said that they wanted Walmart nationwide to get involved with policing and community policing and doing, being more active roles in the community. And so now we're talking not just the Plattsburgh Police Department or the city of Plattsburgh. Now we're talking they want to do this like nationwide. So you're making a bigger impact.
Of what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So, we took pictures with Floyd and his assistant manager and the regional director or the regional manager, and then people from their corporate office. And, and here I am in uniform, and they're taking a picture, and there's a bunch of people there and kids, and it was great. But he, the summer 2 summers ago, I went on vacation. I was gone for like a 2-week vacation, and I stayed here locally, and I got a phone call from the assistant manager, and she said, did you hear about Floyd? I said, no, I didn't. She said he just got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and they don't know how long he's going to live. And one of the things, he's sick right now, and he needs to get treatment, and he's not in a good place. This is a man that's 34 years old.
Yeah.
He still has a life to live, you know. And they said one of his wishes were if you could come down today and do the Make-A-Wish Foundation for the Miracle. Is it the Kids Miracle Network? It's for the kids with cancer.
Wish,
yeah.
Yep.
And they set up like this little mock jail cell, and Floyd wanted to know if I could show up in uniform, and they could pay money. It's a donation. They could pay money to keep me in jail, or they could pay money to get me out of jail, to bail me out. And she said, I didn't realize that you're on vacation. She said, well, you know, I'll just let them know. I said, I'll be there in about 30 minutes. And I came in on my vacation, and, you know, I was in uniform, and we raised thousands of dollars, and they wanted to have a picture of me in there to let Floyd know that I was there. And he fought that battle, and they thought it was, you know, not cured, but manageable and handled. But it came back, and not too long ago, I was given a phone call from the current manager, that Danielle, who I've become close with, and they said that he had passed away.
Yeah.
So this past Sunday, I just got a phone call from Floyd's mom and Floyd's sister. And it was a pretty emotional conversation. And I hadn't talked to the family since he had passed away. And they let me know they're doing a razor run. He loved to ride those side-by-side razor machine, the kind of off-road ATVs. And it's about an hour and a half away. So they're doing a razor run. And there's over 800 people signed up for it. And they want people to donate for a cause. And Floyd specifically said to his mom and his sister that they would like, if something like that was done and it was for a charity or an event, that he would like it to be given back to our community, and specifically community policing.
Wow.
And what I'm doing. And they called me and asked if there was any ideas. Of course, I'm telling them, hey, there's United Way, there's JCEO, there's St. Jude, there's, you know, the Salvation Army, and those are all great causes. But they said, is there something like specialized, or something that, you know, in memory of Floyd? And I said, he likes four-wheelers and ATVs. They said, yeah. And I said, well, what about if you guys have funds and you buy something like a side-by-side, and we can put in memory of Floyd bump on there, and we can use it for parades and community events, and, you know, 4th of July and fireworks, and the beach. He used to love going to the beach, so it could be used to patrol the beach. They want to open that wide open this summer. And they said that is a great idea, because that's what he loved to do. So just to have that conversation is just, you know, somebody like that was just looking a way to give back to the community. Did it just before he passed, and then including after. So it's kind of touching to, you know, to talk about Floyd. So,
no, I mean, like I said, it's, you know, 34. I'm 31, so I mean, he's you know, a peer of mine, or age-wise. I didn't know him, but it's no. I think it. Like I said, it's this. I mean, the stuff that you've mentioned. I think this is 121 episodes. I think majority of the stories are just stuff I've never heard before, or like I said, you know, we have a lot of the stuff we have fun, and we, you know, shoot the breeze about a bunch of different topics and stuff. But like I said, I think it's important that, you know, to kind of get the message out of like, hey, there's there's people that need help in the community. It's not necessarily like, we see national stuff and there's benefits to national charities, but I'm always like, I really try to focus on, if I'm going to do time charity, I try to make sure that it's still in the confines of, the county or the local area that could benefit from it. Cause there's so many people that need neighbors that need help that it's like, it's a part of the local matters. Like there's people here that need your help. There's people you don't even know about that need your help. That, like you said, you might see them on the street. Hey, Paul, how you doing? And all of a sudden, Paul's struggling, and or you didn't. I mean, you don't know he's struggling.
Right.
But someone like you or United Way or JCO might know that. And,
right.
No, I think it's absolutely incredible what you're doing, and I like I said, I wish you, more success. And obviously, I've talked to, I think it was the community Christmas. You said you called it now. I think we had done some stuff with the Osable Forks Fire Department. And,
right.
Actually, you were one of recommended. I'm sure he's going to listen to this, but Mike Cross was. He's a good friend of mine, and
he's the one who reached out to me, and I said, "Hey, is there a way you can bring one of your fire trucks down?"
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure he jumped at it. He's like I said, he's got a heart of gold, and I think and like I said, just the stuff you're doing, and I think you're putting your resources in the right direction, and I think you are making a difference, and I think that. Like I said before, that snowball effect, I think the difference is really going to compound. And I think, the work you're doing now, you kind of want to leave the place better than you found it. And I think that's something you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, if people want to get involved, like I have your card, but just kind of give them the, if you want to reach out, what, things that you're looking for, upcoming events you guys have.
Yeah. And we're always open for suggestions also. We don't know all. And we're not trying to be all, but we definitely want to get involved. And if people want to either come down to the community center at 79 Margaret Street, if the open sign's on and lights on, I'm there. If I have to leave because I'm usually the only person manning it, it's not staffed by other police department members. So if I have to walk the beat, I lock it up. If I have to go do an event, I lock it up. If I'm meeting with clients or, with people in need, I'll lock it up. And then as soon as I come back, I'll turn the lights on. And so there are times that is locked up, but I typically work Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, 8 to 5, sometimes till 6, till 7, depending on what's going on. I can also be reached on my department cell phone number. It's 518-802-7026. And I carry that with me pretty much 24/7. I, answer text, emails, phone calls. Being part of the recruiting process now, I'm, I don't want to say even more available, but there are some young people that I've talked to that are interested in the career, and I could give them a perspective on what the job is and what they need to do. So.
Yeah. Well, Brad, I appreciate you coming on and taking the time. And like I said, some of the stories were, pretty heavy stories, but I think there's things that people have to be aware of. And, like I said, that's why I do a lot of the podcasts. I get to meet different people and hear different perspectives and stories. And I think, like I said, I was very happy you came on. Thank you very much. Anything else?
I appreciate the invite, and, it is a small world, and people hear things or they see things, and whether people know it or not, by you doing this, you're getting involved. It involves you getting involved in the community. To have this conversation that maybe people weren't aware of the services or what we're trying to do. Like you said, times are changing. I think it's not only needed, but it's wanted. We've been very fortunate with our community. We've worked with people that, are fighting for equality and, instead of damaging buildings and, riots, that they have a First Amendment right to express themselves and to protest. And we're a part of making sure that was done peacefully on both sides. And, I appreciate the time because time is more valuable than anything else. So by me sitting here talking about what we're doing as a department and the community center is very valuable. You can't put a dollar amount on it. It's, the time to be able to do this and express what we do, and maybe it'll get 5, 10, 100, 1,000 more people to say, wow, there's a lot going on in our community. It's right here locally, and they should be proud. They should be proud of how the community has responded and what our local departments are doing.
And being a leader, like you said, you've been doing this 2 years before it was a state mandate. And
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
Also with the Walmart, trying to get people involved. And,
as a matter of fact, Nicole Hilton Patterson from Adirondack Diversity and Inclusion wants me to go to Saranac Lake. We're still trying to get with a time and a date, and speak to other departments, politicians, business owners, because they want to use what we're doing as a model for the state. As far as a community policing program. So, that means a lot. So
groundbreaking, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, well, Brad, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Again, folks, if you can check them out and, stop in the community center. It's I'm sure you pass by it multiple times a week. So stop in, say hi. And yeah, if you can get involved in any, follow you guys on social media. You have a social media presence, and we'll try to link some stuff up in the show notes. But if you can, check them out, follow them. I think that's where, like I said, I see some of the stuff you guys are doing in the community. And, I think if people can, give, if they have resources to give, whether that be time, money, awareness, so even just support, even a high five, I'm sure
right,
keeps you guys going. So,
yep.
But Brad, thank you very much. Again, that is episode 121 of the Galen Trombley Show. Thanks for listening to the Galen Trombley Show. If you want to reach me, you can go on Facebook at Galen Trombley, on Instagram at Galen Trombley, and on YouTube at Galen Trombley. The spelling, GaelanTrombley.